Friends, I want to talk about how the U.S. just contradicted Kyiv. Yup, you heard that right. The U.S., Kyiv's patron, just contradicted its own proxy. How? About the issue of so-called Iranian ballistic missiles arriving in Russia. So according to Kyiv, these missiles have already arrived in Russia. But according to the Pentagon, this hasn't happened, at least not yet. And more so, why this is so important to pay attention to, this little spat between allies, is because Kyiv had earlier called for the U.S. and its allies to bomb Iran's military-industrial complex in the Islamic Republic to destroy these missiles before they even reach Russia. And in the event that they do reach Russia, which Kyiv said has already happened, but Russia and Iran have denied, and the Pentagon says they don't have any information about, which is pretty important to pay attention to, then according to Kyiv, the launch sites inside Russia should also be struck. So why isn't the U.S. going along with this fake news narrative? After all, it's so-called low-hanging fruit. It's easy. The U.S. can kill two birds with one stone, smear Russia and Iran at the same time. And not only that, against the backdrop of Netanyahu's likely return to power. So why wouldn't the U.S. pluck this low-hanging fruit? It doesn't make any sense unless you take into consideration prior reports that National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan allegedly has some type of contact with Russian officials over risk de-escalation. So what that means in practice is that the U.S. is pretty concerned about the conflict becoming much worse, okay? This U.S.-led NATO proxy war on Russia through Ukraine isn't turning out the way the U.S. thought, okay? Granted, the U.S. is profiting to some extent. It has benefited with respect to reasserting its declining unipolar hegemony over Europe, but in other respects, things are not going as planned. So, if we look at what Kyiv wants to escalate the conflict, but it seems like the U.S. definitely doesn't feel comfortable with the way that Kyiv wants to do this, if at all, okay? We also know that the Republicans might be returning to power in the United States, at least to some extent, and that could handicap some of the U.S.'s military assistance to Kyiv. So, there you have it. There's a lot more going on behind the scenes, and what's going on behind the scenes, which is yet not so clear, might explain why the U.S. just contradicted Kyiv on a very sensitive issue.